Hello, everybody. Good morning. Almost good afternoon. Just afternoon. So thank you for joining us today. I think someone, you want to, there's a seat right here. Some in the front here. We're very nice. You know, I just said, I think that's the back of the class trouble zone back there. So thank you all for coming today. We're really excited with our guests that came up from New York City. They've been traveling for a few hours, folks from Albany, Saratoga area. And then if you're in Schoharie County, you could still be 30-45 minutes away. So thank you for making the trip up to Schoharie today. So I'm Julie Piketty with SEEK, the Schoharie Economic Enterprise Corporation. We were established in 2019. And since then, we've been mobilizing millions of dollars into the community and hosting programs such as this for the last few years. So we're pretty excited about where we're at and where we're going. We are privately funded, but we work with our public partners, and we have a few public partners here today. Jim Halios is the Executive Director of the Industrial Development Agency for Schoharie County. John Crescimano is the Economic Development Coordinator for Schoharie County. And then our friends from SUNY Cobuskill are here as well. Abby and Bennett, represent the Entrepreneur Assistance Center out of the Institute for Rural Vitality. So we're excited. We're really excited that you're all here. The panelists that we have today is extraordinary. They have lots of experience in this MWBE, the Minority Women Business Owned Enterprise certification process. When we spotted the Sail-Thru New York promotion that the governor announced not long ago, I think probably 2 months ago, maybe.
July 11th.
Oh, so less than 2 months ago. These folks responded in a big way. So we're really, really excited to have them here today. So the program will start with a panel. I'll introduce the folks. I have a few questions for them. Empire State Development does have a presentation that's about 20 minutes that they'll share for the certification process. And then we have a lunch reception upstairs in the Palladium room. So everybody is welcome to stay, wander through the building, notice the art from one of our local artists, Dimitri Castrine. I was just saying to Simona, Queen Elizabeth is in the other room, and you'll be lunching with Johnny Cash and James Baldwin upstairs. So thanks again for coming. I'm going to introduce the speakers. We'll do a couple of minutes there, and then we'll roll right into the certification. And we're leaving a lot of time for you to ask questions and for you to interact with the professionals that are here today. We're thrilled to have 16, 18 businesses here today that are interested in certification. And as you see, many of which are women in Schoharie County. All of the certified businesses are women. Starting here with Joanne Crum, she may have been the first certified business in Schoharie County. I'll have to check the dates. Emily can fact check me. So we're thrilled to have her here, and she has 2 businesses certified and maybe going for a 3rd. So we'll hear more from Joanne. Before I introduce the panelists, however, I'd like to introduce the Executive Vice President of Empire State Development, Jason Clark. So Jason, thank you for making the trip up from New York City. Jason is the lead for the Division of Minority and Women. Is it women? Minority and Women. Yep. Yes, Business Development. So there are a lot of acronyms, you guys, so please let us know. Jason's background, though, is really interesting. I was just talking to him for a moment. He was Tech New York City before he moved into this role. So I was just sharing technology in Schoharie County is one of our main priorities in bringing a rural community forward to the next century worth of work. Paul is one of our advisors for SEEK, and that's his bailiwick. So I'm sure he'll chew your ear in a bit, Jason. But Jason has not only been from the tech sector, he's also led not-for-profits. Dream Chasers was one of his organizations to help students from underrepresented communities find prosperity. guess, to channel them towards success. You also established an organization, Good Call New York City, for folks that needed that one good call to make if they had found themselves in a little bit of trouble and needed some counsel from legal. Jason set up an organization that linked those two. And we understand that here in our rural community, Schoharie County is part of the Appalachian region. So we are the northeast corner of Appalachia, a federally designated region. So since 2021, or in 2021, I believe you were an elected official as well.
Oh,
No?
no. So I ran for city council.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I get to be here.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So Jason, tell us before we move to the panel, what's your role in MWBE? Why is it important for you?
Yeah, sure. And first of all, I'd also like to say thank you to everyone for coming out today. To us, it's very important that, we're not just providing services to folks who are certified now, but we're expanding the number of businesses that have an opportunity to, really leverage some of these amazing historic procurement opportunities that we have today. And as many folks on our team know, the word that I hate the most since I got this role is wavered. And that means that there was a contract and, the governor has some 30% goals to make sure that minority businesses are getting to it. But if there's a waiver, that means that we're able to find someone who's do that type of in that area. So the more that we have more businesses that are certified, the more that we have more businesses that are prepared to be able to take on those roles, that means that more minority businesses are going to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that we have here, whether it's the ones we're talking about in the state or some of the adjacent ones such as Micron that I know is going to really transform some of the areas in the city. But I guess I'd say to your answer, what's the reason why MWBs are important is I think that is because first, it's very difficult being a small business to get started. If you're a small business, there's so many things challenges you have to deal with. I know a lot of folks that probably come from more stable roles, but they took a chance on themselves to be able to go out there and kind of pursue their dream. But if you're also an MWBE, it's even that much tougher. There's all these statistics out there that show that if you're a Black entrepreneur, the times when Black people are rejected for a loan, we're talking about women businesses. I think it's 40%. 40% have reported being dealing with some type of biasness when they're trying to make a pitch out there. So you should know that there is a partner out there to allow you to be successful, be helpful for that. And I think that at least from the division and Steve, one of the things that we're very proud of is that the governor has set the goal of 30% going to MWBEs, but for the third year in a row, we've hit at least 30%. In fact, in this past year, it was 32.3%, which is the highest in history. These are all good things, but I truly feel like there's a lot more that can be done. And we're hoping that with some of these events like our Sail-Thru summer, where we're trying to figure out how we can get more folks who know about how to get certified. And then after that, how you can know more about access to capital, how you can know about some of the accelerator programs so that you're in a position to be competitive and get these contracts. But the first step is being able to get certified. So, we're really going out there doing everything we can. We used to have this backlog, which made it a little difficult to be able to get through the process, but we've made a lot of adjustments to it so that it's a lot more streamlined. And, I'm just really happy to hear that there's 16, 17 businesses that are interested. So, really excited to be here. I just know that there's more we can do. And just thank you all for your work and for this event.
Thank you, Jason. We're thrilled to have you. And as he spoke, we'll learn about certification today, and our partners at the Small Business Development Center and at SUNY CoSkill are at the ready. They want to be booking appointments with you today for next week for you to get all of your paperwork together in the pipeline. So they are really ready to help you move this forward after you learn everything you need to know from the others. So Following Jason, we'll go to Jenny Lowe's at the center of our panel. She's very modest, but Jenny's a dynamo. We just, when we reached out, when we read about the Sail-Thru New York, we entered a form online and Jenny responded and said, yes, we can pull this off. Jenny has been working tirelessly, very communicative with us. She's an executive advisor for Empire State Development and worked in the governor's office for years. But prior to that time, she spent a career with JP Morgan as corporate communications. She's been recognized as Power Player 100 in the Asian community in New York City. See how modest she is? She doesn't like to even hear this. So we're thrilled, Jenny, that you're here to talk about MWBE and why it's important to you.
Well, first of all, Julie, thank you very much, and please thank Gabrielle for working with me to put this thing together in such a short time. It really, we are counting on collaborators like yourself and Kate and Abigail, the three technical assistance providers, to really collaborate more closely to really help set a model of win-win-win. You folks help businesses with all aspects of business advisory. And our division, as you heard from Jason, we're here to help minority women-owned businesses who have had difficulty in many aspects of the running their business, to get them certified so that they can take advantage of this opportunity that the government has, or the state of New York has, for over 35 years. And get certified and take the opportunity to build business from the 30% goal that the state has with minority and women-owned businesses. So we thought about how can we do more, as Jason mentioned, that now that we are operating in a new normal, which is the backlog that you have heard about in our division for decades, that is gone. Our new normal is we can certify, Amanda and the team can make a determination of an application between 90 to 120 days, but we are really trending below 90 days. So we're thinking, how else can we reduce that time, right? And what can help Amanda's team get through the application quicker and then make that determination. So we're like, Kate and Abigail, their colleagues are there to help businesses with all kinds of advice, including helping you prepare your application to get certified, whether it's with us or with other entities that do the certification. So we said, hey, if you help folks put together a packet and application, they submit the application through the Sail-Thru summer program, which is just a way for us to say, this is going to be quick. And the initiative does end at the end of this month, August 30th. So any application that have the support of one of these centers and gets submitted to us, we will have an ongoing communication between the applicant, the business advisor, and us. Meaning that anytime something needs to be done, the advisor will know, and they will contact the business and say, hey, look at the email from ESD. Let's look at it together. Let's see how we can answer that, provide information. And this is a way for us to basically collaborating with existing resources that are free to the public. And they have very good expertise in how to help them get certified. So that's the program that we came up with, and we're looking for more ways to do some similar ways. So let's take one initiative at a time, and that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
And Jenny listens. So this isn't meant to be a one-way dialogue today. So they're sharing their information, and please, if you've been in the process or got stuck in the process or new to the process, don't hesitate to ask questions or share your experience and insights as well. It's really encouraged. Jenny also mentioned certification, that's step one today, but our friends, Kate and SUNY Coviskill, are ready to help you once you're certified, put together that business development plan as well. So how can I leverage them?
Since I think of the newest person here, and I'm going to ask a very uneducated question. Certified for what? I'm sorry, I don't know.
So today is about minority and women-owned business enterprise, becoming certified as a woman-owned or a minority-owned business. And what are the benefits of that? And there's a presentation and these folks will
Great.
share that information.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, so next we'll go with Amanda. Amanda is the vice president. Now, Amanda worked through the ranks to earn that vice president role. She started as an analyst, remembered Joanne when she applied, but Amanda works out of the Capital Region, vice president for certifications. Amanda is local. She has her master's degree from St. Rose, St. Rose, but also a Rockport graduate. So I was pleased to read both. You were a law clerk for a number of years, and you've been working in this role as the vice president of certification, so overseeing the state, I presume, and the certification piece, making sure folks get through this process in a reasonable way. And I think you're going to be the presenter today for the ESD.
Correct.
Great. So tell us why MWBE is important. You said you were in the right place at the right time, but it's the right place.
So I worked at a small law firm in Clifton Park for a decade before I came to ESD. And what I found there was I was always meeting people after they had already encountered a problem or there was already an issue at hand. And so after a while, I wanted to stop being the fixer and start being in the front of things to try and make a difference at that end. And oddly enough, the firm that I represented actually represented some MWBEs and I helped them through their application. And so I educated myself on our program, which I didn't know very much about at the time, to be brutally honest. And it just seemed like a really good place to go and work, where instead of, making room for people at the table, we could go and be a program that builds a longer table to invite more people to participate in state government contracting. And so in 2019, I got hired. I became a certification analyst. I did that for 2 years. I became a supervisor. In 2023, I was the project director for eliminating certification backlog. We had 18 months to do that. My outstandingly hard
Pause.
Yeah.
You accepted that job with that title.
Okay, so full transparency, I didn't apply for it and I didn't want it. But somehow it happened, and here I am. Like most things. But I just work with an amazing team of certification analysts who just buckled down, and in 9 months they got rid of a decades-long certification backlog, which allowed us, with Jason's support, to revamp the entire certification process. We're really trying to make it less clinical. We understand it's about all of you, about people, about your businesses, about your livelihood, and so we want the interaction with yours. And so that's sort of how I ended up.
That's awesome. And it's important to,
because I have, my mother was a small business owner. She was the first person in her family to graduate high school. She put herself through law school thereafter. And I just know, growing up, all of this struggle, and if she would have known about an opportunity like this, the difference it could have made for our family. And so to be able to work for a program that can help other families so they don't have to struggle like we did to get to where we were, it meant something to me. And I'm the type of person that needs to work somewhere where I feel like I'm making a difference and creating the world that I want to be living in, that I want to raise my kids in. And Empire State Development is just absolutely the best place to. So there's the plug. We're hiring. Yeah, we're fun too.
And thinking of your mom, not to undervalue, and Jason alluded to this, I'm sure you've all read somewhere that the first business loans for women were offered in 1988 is the reality. It's crazy. We've had the chairman of our board said that when his wife was even just working as a teacher and she went to the bank to open an account because she had her first job, the bank said no. And we know Dusty, and Tom was telling the story. Somebody told Dusty no. and he's like, she got an account. But even just a regular bank account for the young people in the room, just for a woman to have a bank account in the 1970s was unheard of. And they had to jump through hoops. We had a women leading business session here a couple of years ago, and one of Shannon Hayes at Set Bush Hollow Farm talked about the first time she went in for a loan for her business, that they said, "Well, your husband needs to sign this." And she was like, "My husband can't hold a job." Like, no, I don't want him on this loan. And they really gave her a hard time, and she also won. But that's what women less than 50 years old, or perhaps older than 50, have experienced as business communities. So when we're talking about MWBE certification of the day, and particularly to young people, you're thinking about the future. Women have come a long way, baby. I mean, truly, in the last 30 years. So we're really thrilled to see the strength of the women in our community and how eager you are to better yourselves and to look for those other opportunities. So, yes, Eileen.
Can part-time businesses apply?
Oh, absolutely. We have a ton of firms where, you know, we all have bills to pay, right? So as a small business, you can't always just quit your 9 to 5 to go start your own business, because the mortgage is still gonna come, National Grid's still gonna be knocking on your door. Like, all of these things are still going on. So we have plenty of people who own part-time businesses that seek certification.
Great. And what's some more details?
If you're doing that, there is a spot in the application for you to provide a narrative. And we encourage everyone to include a narrative that's their origin story, right? It becomes more important if there are male partners or non-certifiable individuals that have ownership, and or if you're a part-time business. So if you can demonstrate how it's your business, even though you have external employment, it makes it easier for the analyst to see how you qualify. But use that space and tell your story, because that's what is more compelling and can make your case a lot of times more than a piece of documentation.
And well said from Captain COVID. Kate Baker led us through the COVID crisis, leading the Albany Small Business Development Center. We looked for resources everywhere to help communicate to the communities. Bobby was on one of our roundtables, led one of them, hosted one, that Kate was the go-to source in that. All of that information that was flying around was very difficult to synthesize, curate. Kate did it. Kate does it very well, very fast. And what's interesting when I was looking at bios, you both have history degrees too. So I don't know how history parlays into MWBE, but
Perspective
excellent, excellent.
and semantics.
Lots of reading.
So Kate leads the University of Albany Small Business Development Center. It is funded. I guess it's prepaid, is what Jan used to say. It's prepaid by your tax dollars, so it's free to you. She has a team of advisors, and tell us more about how your organization helps MW, please.
Absolutely. So my team up in Albany, I think there's 8 of us now, and we dedicate ourselves solely to supporting small businesses, whether it's identifying capital, helping you understand what AI is all about, right, and how that matters to you. But most importantly, a big push of what we do, because we are so close to capital, is MWBE certifications. It's important to me, and it became important to me almost 20 years ago. And I'm gonna really date myself here, but it was a paper application, and there was the regional office in Albany where you would go and they would come and do site visits. And I had a client that wanted it. I knew nothing about it. So I, called my little butt down to Fire State Development. They explained the whole thing to me, helped somebody through the process. And then I got all of these women certified. And the next step was, well, all right, I got it, now what? That's an area that we specialize, I think, probably better than anyone else, because we've worked with more than 1,000 certified firms out of the Albany office in the last 20 years. It's very rarely a New York State contract is where the benefit is, right? Anywhere a state dollar touches is where the benefits can be. It can be your local school district, it can be your town, it can be your county. It can be out of market, right? So just because you're in Schoharie County, it's all over New York State. And what I'm now telling people is to look outside of where you are, and the pockets where there's fewer certified firms and less competition, right? So if you're looking at due north, when you get into some of those counties, there's opportunities there that nobody's pursuing. the regional councils for economic development, almost every single one of those grants has an MWBE component to it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be state contracting. And it's figuring out where you are, where you want to go, and what are your best pathways. Because selling to the government, it's like eating an elephant. You're only going to get there one bite at a time. And so you can't let it become all-encompassing, that kind of thing. But outside of New York State MWBE, once you have that, there's 1,000 other opportunities on the federal side, right? So they have 2 different women-owned programs. They have a rural program called Hub Zone, which gives you a 35% price differential on your bid. So 35% higher than your competitors and still get the award. They've got a veterans program, they've got a minority program. So it's taking a look at that entire landscape and how do you fit and where do you want to go? So that's our role. I'm incredibly passionate about it, but everybody on my team works on MWBE businesses because it's so important.
That's great. And Kate's team's working with 2,000 businesses in the region.
1,300 every year.
1,300 every year. And you have been recognized as the best in the state, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've been, back when my advisor days, it's pre-COVID, sometimes I miss those days. I was a top 5 business advisor in this state, almost 10 years ago. To give you some perspective, my center, and I don't do the work anymore, it's my team. Highest access to capital in the state last year. We met all of our federal goals last year. We were one of 5 centers in the state to do that. And 3 of my advisors were recognized statewide for something that they did on the team. So we've got a really great center. You should use us for free.
You heard that, right? Use them, they're free. Caroline?
That 30% number, is that a New York State goal? It doesn't include like any of those municipalities or?
That's the New York State spending goal, but the requirements trickle down. And that's where, especially to somebody starting, is where the opportunity is. Because I like to tell people, you're not going to become a Turner Construction primary subcontractor for their MWBE program the day after you get started. You have to prove that you're worthy of that level of contracting. So you have to look where you are and build your capacity along the way. It's a series of steps. And we have seen companies go, we worked with integrated staffing out of Saratoga Springs. And when they started, they were a 2-person operation and they provided staffing. We got them certified and then worked them through getting onto the OGS state contract for staffing, which represented 2.5 million in revenue annually. But they weren't ready for it on the first day. So it's so important in this program to be honest about where you are, really know where you want to go, and then look at all of the pathways there, because it's the hidden pathways that nobody's pursuing, right? Nobody goes after those regional economic council awards every single year, and they're in your county, they're in the neighboring counties, and millions of dollars that are being spent, 30% of which many times has to go to an MWBE.
And that is a perfect segue to Ryan.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Kate.
All right, I'm trying.
Thank you.
Ryan is our representative from the Mohawk Valley, which Schoharie County is part of, in the Empire State Development regions across New York State. They've been defined. So there are 10 regions, we're Mohawk Valley. Even though Kate's from the capital region, we like to play in that sandbox. We are Mohawk Valley. So Ryan is here from the Empire State Development Regional Office. Tell us what you know about MWBE and
Sure.
all of that money that channels into the region.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kate, for the segue, because I'm
All right,
actually
perfect.
that's gonna be myself. Because I'm so glad to see all of you here, because we need you. We need you bad for our projects. So I work in the Mohawk Valley Regional Office, and we administer the REDC grants that Kate had mentioned. These are grants open to businesses, not-for-profits, municipalities, for expansion, traditionally economic development, but we've expanded our goals as well. So now it's also community development and a vast array of other things. So long story short, we hand out grant funding. And in those grants come stipulations. So my job is to provide a contract. We call it an incentive proposal. And in that incentive proposal, we put in writing that you are agreeing to have a 30% magic number that we're talking about, MWBE contract goal, which means 30% of the award that you're getting has to go to MWBE businesses. So we hand out grant money for various types of projects. So some of it is specialty, some of it is traditional construction type projects, but depending on the project, they need various types of contractors, businesses, whatever you're offering for your business is probably needed in some type of project here in the Mohawk Valley. So if you become certified, you would be placed on the vendor list. I think that's the term. And it's on the website for OCSD, Office of Contract Supplier Diversity. And that's what the people that receive our grant money, that's what they go to. They go to and they say, okay, well, let's see, I need and this was a real thing, like a special type of wallpaper. I don't know what it was. It was, I don't know.
I don't know, but I hope they found Adelphi.
Well,
but
yeah,
it's
it
in
was-
our county.
It was a special type of wallpaper they had to do for their project, because if you have like a restoration project, you want, you actually have to have, vintage type material. So anyway, they need specific types of vendors for these projects. And this special type of wallpaper, that was a big component, a large amount of the money was going to that. And they needed somebody for that. And a lot of times, well, not a lot, I should say, some of the time, these projects and the people who receive the grant money do have a hard time locating specific vendors that are MWBEs. So, that's why this is so important today. Like Kate said, we represent the Regional Economic Development Councils, and that's where a large amount of money goes to the private business world. And so that's why it's important for you to become certified to tap into that. I just want to mention one more thing. Amanda, I think, I double check, sorry. Leslie B. Craft is in the office next door to me.
Yes,
She deserves a promotion.
I know.
She's the
I'm
hardest
thinking about it right
She's
here.
the hardest worker.
Yes,
She's on calls all day long.
yes.
And she'll come out of her office and so it's like, oh my gosh, and I say, Leslie, what are you doing in there? I'm so sorry. And so she is the hardest worker.
Mhm.
And I see it firsthand that ESD in New York State, not to promote ourselves, is working very hard at expanding our MWBE program. So take advantage of it.
Thank you, Ryan. And a lot of the perspective from this side of the room is the importance of accessing capital, accessing opportunities. What we believe in Schoharie County is to get certified because we're building a community of business leaders, minority and women business leaders. So there's not just an opportunity to build your business, but it's an opportunity to come together as a community and really show the world what rural America has to offer and how the women in our communities have been leading the way for a long time. Historically, I'll tell you the Magdalena Z story over cocktails one day about the strength of the women when the tax collector came here. But seeing all the women in this room is really phenomenal. And I think access it for the business development opportunity, but appreciate it for the growth of community and what we represent here too. So last but not least, Joanne's going to bring it home for us. Joanne Crum is woman-owned business enterprise certified for over 30 years. So Joanne understands this for decades and how important it is to really credential and to make sure women in business are acknowledged for the skills, the talents, the knowledge that they have. Joanne has 3 different businesses, one of which is her land surveying business, which when you started that 30 years ago, I imagine it was a man's world. 38 years ago.
Go to Paul Smith?
What's that?
Did you go to Paul Smith?
No,
No.
I have a bachelor's degree in sociology.
I went to Paul Smith, so I knew all the
My husband
surveys.
went there.
All right. Okay.
Joanne also started a business called Iron Ore, which we understand is the manhole covers that she'll talk a little more about. And then because that wasn't enough, she became an attorney not long ago, a decade ago, and has been practicing law, and that benefits all of those businesses, I suspect. So Joanne, tell us, we're thrilled that you're here to represent our community and why certification matters. So talk to us about it.
Okay, my name is Joanne Darcy Crum. I've I went to public school. My parents had property in the center, and I met my husband. So that's where we ended up living. I worked for Ruby Snyder, surveyor down in Middleburg for almost 10 years. And at one point I decided I had to either move up or move on. So they allowed me to go in the field and I became licensed. At the time I was licensed, there was about 5% of all surveyors were women. And there was a lot of grief given to me. I was appointed to the state board, and just as an example, and I was told by the heir apparent to the state board for licensing for engineers and land surveyors that I was appointed because I had a bachelor in business. Yeah. My husband almost went through. But I was like, Jim, calm down. And then several years later, one of the guys who had retired said, you know, I didn't support you, but you've done a fine job. So that was very,
Yeah.
thankful.
Right.
Yes. So I started my business in 1987, and I picked up a couple of employees. In 1991, I did get certified as a WBE in land surveying, and yes, they did a site visit, and they came and spoke to me. And my husband actually worked for a construction company, so they were thinking that, oh, this is your husband's business, and this isn't yours. I was like, well, I have the license, and my husband works in a different office, and we don't have anything to do with each other.
This was 1991. I mean, they just seem to restate it. Keep going.
So then I continued with my business. I've done a fair amount of design survey work. Our firm has never been cut out for construction surveying, which is very demanding. And I've had several women employees that have had babies, and it's like, well, you know what? We're not going to be out on the road when she's 9 months pregnant. We're not going to be out on the road when she has a 6th baby at home. So we've stuck to what was called design surveys. So if the state was going to go in and do a road project, we would go out and do the preliminary location of all of the road and all of the structures and all of the bridges, and we would survey the bridges, and we would survey the creeks going under the bridges so that they could design proper clearances. And at one point, I did a survey of 1,900 acres at Stewart Airport. That was really quite a. It was just wonderful. And that was for the DOT. And so then I at some point at one point I had 12 employees, and I'm going to say it's a problem. One of the problems with working for the state, especially on DOT projects, is what's called prevailing rate. And prevailing rate is significantly higher than regular rate. So there was always a push and pull trying to get your numbers approved. And one time I got audited and they tried to tell me that it owed them $35,000. I was like, you approved this contract. I paid my people. I'm not giving you $35,000. So it ended up that
You
I
became an attorney.
So I had some help from my assemblyman, and they decided that I didn't get $35,000. So and then I've been in business for 38 years. I have not done very much DOT work lately because I don't have the staff anymore. At some point, I decided that trying to keep on the staff, I'm going to $100,000 in debt, actually closer to 200,000. And I decided that, you know what, if I don't have to work, I'm not going to have the staff. So we've gone down now to just three other people in the office. A few years ago, I started another business, and that was called Iron Ore, Iron OR. So it's like my motto is iron or anything else you need. So, we did get certified as a WBE in that, and that is, we sell, we resell grates and frames for contractors. And that we have been doing, we probably do about $40,000 or $50,000 worth of sales each year. And I've been talking to, Jenny, yes, sorry. And actually, I've learned stuff here today, and I've been an attorney at age 52, I started law school. And my husband ate a lot of peanut butter sandwiches and said, thank you. And after I finished, I worked for 6 years with a larger firm in Albany, and after 6 years, about 6 years, in 2018, I said, you know what? I'm 62 and I don't have to drive to Albany and I don't want to drive to Albany anymore. And I just want to be a surveyor on Main Street and a lawyer on Main Street. So I just do real estate transactions, wills, powers of attorney. But at this time, there's only 2 surveyors who are also licensed as attorneys in the whole state. So I do get a lot of calls both on survey for expert witness. And I also get a lot of calls in law. So I do a lot of boundary and easement dispute litigation. So I've got a lot of clients because of my survey business, because of being in business for 38 years. So the WBE, I'm actually definitely going to apply before the end of the month for my law business. I didn't really expect that there would be a whole lot of work out there for me as an attorney. But Jenny has indicated that there's probably a good place to be.
The economic council stuff, tons of attorney work
Well,
in there.
Brian just talked about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Tons of-
right, exactly, exactly. So I will definitely be applying for my next WBE. And we run all 3 businesses right out of my office in Cobblestone on West Main Street. And so I've been an attorney since 2012.
It's incredible. Why did you become a WBE first?
Well, I became WBE because I saw the potential. I saw the potential and we were looking for work and it really was very, very helpful for a number of years. I've gotten a lot smaller in the survey business. I was actually going to quit the survey business altogether after I started my law office, but there's so few surveyors around,
Right.
and you already have people waiting a year or 2 for a survey. So I decided that, well, since we can do it, that we should do it. So I'm continuing surveying law, and Jill in my office is the main person that does the iron work.
And back in the day, wasn't the dormitory authority like the big pusher of?
Dormitory Authority and DOT.
Yeah,
I
of
did most of my
MWBE.
work. I did most.
And now
of
it's
my work.
everybody.
I'm also certified as a DBE, which is called the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, which is a federal certification. And you have to meet certain income guidance, certain net worth guidelines.
And I think Kate alluded to that and all of those different opportunities. There's
It's an alphabet soup.
veteran, service
There's
disabled. Yeah.
Veterans on New York State, so there's service disabled veterans, which this area has quite a few. On the federal side, you just need a 1% disability on your DD-12s. And in New York State, it's 10%. There's that same program mimics the MWBE program for New York State, it's 6% goal there. You've got, DVEs, which is a DOT only certification, but with all of the infrastructure money, the potential is huge there right now. And then you've got the federal traditional programs, but don't forget about the Stewart Air Force days, which is, hop, skip, and a jump, because you guys all drive 45 minutes to the grocery store sometimes. No, I'm kidding. My family had a business in Lake Placid, and our nearest Walmart was 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I get the rural struggle, but it's not that far from here, and that's one of the largest federal spending sites in upstate New York, next to the Basin Water.
Great. All right. So we've heard a lot, insights, your roles, what you bring to the table. There'll be an opportunity to have one-on-ones with them. But right now we're going to let Amanda run with her certification presentation. I think, Kate, will you spin the blinds down? Brian, can you reach?
Sure.
Take there. We'll spin the blinds down so that you can see the presentation. For the folks in the corner there want to scoot around so you can see the presentation. Naona's going to walk us through this in about 15 minutes, and then I'll be open floor Q&A and then lunch.
So the Italian in me is gonna come out. I'm gonna talk with my hands and be moving the whole time. So if it becomes distracting, just let me know. I just can't help it. All right, so today we're gonna talk about MWBE certification. So we told you what it's all about. Now I'm gonna tell you how to get certified. And then Kate's gonna help you through it.
Then we'll do it.
Yeah. So getting just through the basics of it, Article 15A is what created the MWBE program. It set up the office, it set up the certification program, and it is what has charged state agencies with establishing the MWBE goals on state contracting opportunities. So we have a mission here, and you will feel it with any of the analysts that you work with. But our mission here is really to promote equality of economic opportunities for MWBEs. It's what this entire panel has talked about today. So there are many benefits to MWBE certification. We've talked a lot about the state contracting opportunities. Currently, we have over 8,500 certified firms in our MWBE directory. The certification also provides you access to specific capital opportunities. There are a bunch of flyers over there on that table that will go through some of the funding opportunities related to MWBE certification, as well as the certification process, pitfalls, etc. And you also get an access to a network of support and services for MWBEs, like the wonderful people you're meeting here today. All right, so in order to apply, you can go to the next slide. In order to apply for state certification, you have to do it on the New York State contract system. And so the New York State contract system, it's all a digital application. You go through and answer a bunch of questions, and then there's a laundry list of documentation that we require. Over on that table, there's also a cheat sheet of all of that documentation on 2 pages. So that way you'll be able to sort of take that and you can collect your stuff together and sort of check it off yourself. So what do you need in order to be certified? There are roughly 26 different criteria that need to be met in order to be certified as a minority or woman-owned business. So the first is that the business has to be owned at least 51%, operated and controlled by citizens or permanent residents who are either a woman or a minority group. And Title V, which is our rules and regulations, have defined what the minority groups are relative to certification. So we're going to talk about ownership, operation, and control. So these are some of the main pillars relative to the criteria for certification. So businesses need to be independently owned by the owners relied upon for certification. So I'm going to use that term a lot. When I'm talking about owner relied upon for certification, I'm talking about the individuals in this room, the 51% or more business owners. When we're looking at the certification criteria, we're looking for all of you to be the individuals that fulfill that certification criteria. So the ownership must be real, substantial, and continuing. So I can't just be put on my husband's business for his emergency management because I have zero emergency management experience whatsoever. He's the one with the experience. I would just be, you know, the pretty person on the flyer, but I wouldn't actually bring the substantial value to that. We're also talking about being operated and controlled by the owners relied upon for certification. So if it's your business, you need to control it. You need to control the board of directors. You need to be the highest ranking officer. If your business has a board of directors, you have to control it. Highest ranking officer. When we're talking about that, that means if you're a corporation, your bylaws need to say that you're the president and the president's the highest ranking officer. Things like that are what we're looking at to substantiate that you are actually operating and controlling that business. There's also a personal net worth requirement. You cannot have a personal net worth above $15 million in order to apply for our program. I know, it's so hard for all of us. We all should just leave now and just go without. I know. And, you know, because we're all so close to that, there are disregards. So you can take off your home. The value of your home doesn't go into that. The first $750,000 that you have in your retirement account doesn't count towards that. So, you know, I think we're all going to make it. We'll be close, but it'll be all right. And then we're going to talk about, so it has to be independent of other firms. So, you can't be a supplier of concrete material and you happen to have a concrete company that gives you your space for free. They're also your biggest client, and they're actually the ones operating your computers to sell your goods. You have to be independent. You have to be your own firm. You also have to demonstrate that you've actively conducted business in the last year. So we have to see your tax returns. So if you're not on extension for 2023, we want to see your 2023 tax returns. We want to see your 2022 tax returns if you're on extension to see that you've actively conducted business. And we want to see that you've actively conducted business in this state. And generally, the business has to be in operation for at least a year. So the way that we determine that, if you are a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, we look at the date that you filed with the New York State Department of State to establish your business. If you're a DBA, we look for when you went to the county clerks and filed your business registration or your DBA paperwork. If you're just operating under your own name, we want to see your Schedule C and your tax return showing that you've been operating for at least a year.
Can I just make one thing?
Yep.
Do not make the mistake of going and getting your LLC, sitting on it for a year, applying for certification and not have proof of activity. Because we see that a lot and you won't get through. It's not just the date, you have to actively be working on the business. It doesn't necessarily have to have revenue, but you have to show that you have that capacity to have revenue. Sorry.
No, you're good. So other restrictions, a small business restriction. So you cannot employ more than 300 employees. 300 is fine, 301, not so good. What we look at for that is we look at the last 4 quarters of the 941s that you all would have filed, and we average out through each of those quarters. And as long as that average is 300 or less, then you meet the small business requirement.
Do you have a minimum?
No,
300 is,
no minimum, but the max is 300. And so for out-of-state firms, which this might not apply to you, but we also have a lot of firms in New York State that actually end up organizing in Delaware because Delaware has better corporation protections, apparently. So if you have established your business out of New York State, you still need to then go to the Department of State and you need to file what they call an application for authority, which grants you authority to operate your business in New York State. So just because you work here, if you establish your business in another state, you're going to need to get that application for authority. If you organize your business with the New York State Department of State, that's your authority and you're all set there. So that's the very basic bare bones criteria that we're looking at relative to certification. Now I'm going to talk to you about the variety of options you have relative to applications when applying for certification. How am I doing on time?
You're fine.
Okay, so the application types, we have new, I'm just gonna free it here so we can do this in time. So we have new applications, we have fast track applications, and then we have, for the federal programs, we have fast track DBE applications and fast track 8A applications. The new applications are for firms that are not certified with any other entity yet. And you're seeking certification with New York State. Now, if you come and apply for certification with New York State as a new applicant, you also have the option to fill out 3 different addendum applications at the same time. Those addendum applications are for New York City small business that has an MWBE program. There's the Port Authority, and then there is Erie County, City of Buffalo Joint Commission, all MWBE certification programs. When you apply to us, you can also fill out their 3 forms, attach it to our application, and you basically get to apply for all 4 programs at the same time. So what would happen is we'd review your application. If we found you to meet all of our criteria, we would approve your application, and then we would send on those addendum applications to our partners. And they would then be able to review you for those certifications. So it's like one-stop shopping. Yes.
Is that an automatic?
So as you go through the application documentation, there's 3 different optional documents that you can download, which are those addendum applications. New York City and Port Authority are relatively the same type of criteria as us. The one caveat with the City of Buffalo and the Joint Commission at Erie County is they want to see you doing work in that area. So if your business hasn't done work in that area, yet, it's kind of a disqualifier for you relative to applying with them at the same time, but you can still put the application in. I just like to note that, especially when we're on this side. New York City, you have to meet their nexus. Now, their nexus is kind of easy to do because if you have a bank account relative to New York City, or you have an office location close to New York City, they can count that towards their nexus. I've been speaking a lot with them about that to try to figure out, so yeah. So there's a little nuance to that, but they have ways around getting to their nexus, as they call it, relative to location.
So if you didn't apply for those additional addendum programs, your MWBE certification not carry as much weight if you.
So it would
respond to
just,
a bid.
yeah, it would just fall for New York State contracts. So if you become New York State certified, that helps you for New York State contracting opportunities. New York City has a ton of contracting opportunities. You would want their certification separately from yours. So the fast track applications. So fast track applications are for firms that are already certified with one of our 5 partner agencies. So that's New York City SBS, New York, New Jersey Port Authority, New York, New Jersey Supplier Diversity. I have them down there.
SBA.
Yep, the and the Women's President's Educational Organization, specifically the New York chapter of the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, which I always forget because it's a mouthful. Yeah, WBE. But the acronyms. So if you are certified with one of those agencies already and you have 90 days left on that certification, you can actually apply using a fast track application. The beauty of the fast track is it's less upfront documentation because you've already been certified with another entity. But you have to have 90 days left on it, and there can't be any substantial changes. So if you were certified with WeBank and your ownership was 100%, and now you brought on a new partner, the fast track application is not for you because that substantial change will prevent you from being able to submit the fast track application. Now, a bragging moment, there used to be a point in time where it was more beneficial for you to go apply to another program first and then try to fast track into us. But that was when we had a backlog, and we don't anymore. We are one of the fastest certifying firms at present with 90 to 120 days, but we're actually doing it significantly less than that, but you didn't hear that here.
I'll say it. A lot less.
Yeah. So if you want to get certified and you also are interested in getting certified with partners, the word on the street needs to be that you got to come to New York State first because we'll do it quicker and we do it better. Yes, Jason.
I heard that it's 82% faster than it was.
That's actually absolutely true.
Did I mention we are recording this?
I wouldn't say anything here. I don't say everywhere else anyway. But no, we have, you know, the beauty of having a backlog for decades is it gives you a lot of time to think about how you can do things better. And we have eradicated our backlog. And so now every spare minute of my time and Jason's time and Jenny's time is figuring out how to make this program better, to make it more accessible, to make us live up to our mission and the expectations that the MWBE community should have for us. And so that's really our goal here. So jumping back into application types, if you are certified with either the 8A federal program or the DVE program, we also have fast track application options for you as well. Honestly, the new application is going to get you through just as quickly. We'll have everything up front. It's always my preferred as a prior analyst application type, but you can fill out whichever application type you actually are eligible for.
I don't remember 1 second.
Of course.
When you work with Abigail and Kate's team, the new application is the way to go.
Always. Always, always, always. 9 times out of 10, when we do fast tracks, it takes longer because they need additional documentation because your original partner application was probably missing something. So even though they're a lot faster, if there's a nuanced piece to that partner application that isn't explained in your application, just provide the documents. It's not, I always like to tell people, create a folder. All the documents for all of the programs are the same. And then you just have it. So you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. But for New York State, it's always easier to get through the process if they have everything they need on the front end.
Processing times. So we alluded to this before. It's 90 to 120 days. If you work with one of these wonderful partners, they tend to get you the most beautiful applications into my analysts, which make our job so much easier and processing time significantly quicker. All right, so I want to talk to you about determinations that can come from your application so that you are aware of what's going on. So there are 4 different ways that we can process an application. There's a rejection. Nobody likes to be rejected, but it's not the end of the world. Relative to a rejection occurs if you submitted the wrong application type, or if we needed additional information from you. We will send you a request through our contract system for that additional information. You have under Title V, 20 business days, which is an entire calendar month to get back to us. The sooner you get back to us, the sooner you get a determination. But if you fail to get back to us, we end up rejecting your application, which means you have to start all over again. And there's a 90-day wait period before you can do that again. So don't let that happen. And if you need more time, my analysts are lovingly wonderful people, just like everybody else in this room. Life happens. If you need a week, you need 2 weeks, all you have to do, their email address is at the end of every request. You reach out to them and you tell them you need more time. We understand that you're all running businesses. And so taking the time to fill out this application, which is not an easy task. It's like filing your taxes. Nobody likes to do it. So, but doing it and doing it right leads to all of these extra opportunities. So if you need more time, just reach out to the analyst, let them know. The other option is a withdrawal. So if you get through the process and then we start asking you questions and you're like, wow, okay, maybe today's not the day. Maybe I need to go back. I need to get myself together. I need 3 months. At any time through the certification process, you can ask to withdraw the application. There is no penalty to do that. You can withdraw your application. You can always come back to us when you're ready. We are open Monday through Friday, all federal holidays. I would say 9 to 5, except I was away on site visits last week with 3 of my analysts. Leslie was one of them, and we were in my hotel room at 9 o'clock certifying people. So it's a 9 to 5 thing, but sometimes it's not. If we have a lot of people we want to get certified that are ready, we'll work into the wee hours to make sure that that happens.
Question on that? With
Yes.
Withdrawal, if you do the withdrawal and then you're able to get back into the process,
Mhm.
you jump back in where you jumped out, or do you have to start the process anew, just like you do on a rejection?
So you have to start all over again. However, I will say, if you came back to me 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, and you're like, listen, I didn't think it was coming, but it's here, give me a call and we can make it happen. Because I know it's lengthy.
Their analysts are so good that if you're screwing up the application or the responses, sometimes they'll allude that you should probably withdraw because you're heading for a rejection that you don't want. We see that a lot. And then somebody can intervene and help you with the application. Right, so we don't just help on the application point. When they come back with questions, they are required to use a lot of very specific language to make sure that it's fair across the state. We know what the language means, what specific document they're looking for, that we can explain it. But if you don't work with somebody, that's where you get kind of caught in the process. Like I literally just did one where she withdrew. We redid it all. She insisted on doing it herself. I did the pre-application and preview. I sent her a list of 35 things she did wrong in her application. And now she can fix them before it goes in. And then we'll do the same process again until she has it ready.
So approvals, which I like to call the happy path. We try to get everybody down the happy path, but you put in all your documents, you've answered all our questions, we found you to meet all 26 criteria, you get an approval. That comes with an approval letter that lets you know that you're certified for 5 years and a certificate that has the dates from the date you were certified to the date of expiration. 5 years is a long time. I highly encourage you to mark your calendars the day you get that approval letter for 90 days before your 5th year expiration. So that way you can submit your recertification application, because the worst thing to do would be to be certified, miss your expiration, get removed from the directory and have to do it all over again. So once you get your approval letter, make sure you mark your calendars for like 4 years and 6 months, and then come back to us to submit another application. Last but not least, if we have found you not to meet one of the criteria, so certification is not a, well, you got 25 out of 26, we're going to do this. It's a 26 or no ball game. So if we have found you not to meet one of the criteria, your application can end up in the denial realm. To Kate's point, one of the things that a lot of people get hung up on is actively conducting business and contribution to the New York State economy. If your business hasn't done any work yet, you haven't paid taxes or payroll taxes, business taxes, those are two criteria that could lead you to a denial. We hate denying firms on that. So we ask them questions and try to lead them into the direction that a withdrawal might be the better option. So you don't needlessly go through a process you don't have to. We're trying to be incredibly transparent by having these types of presentations where we let you know those are criteria. So make sure you complete a contract before you come to us and you filed your taxes. But going to centers who will understand those things and understand our questions are incredibly helpful, so you don't end up somewhere none of us want to see you go. Once a business is denied, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision, which you have. But once you are denied, if you don't appeal the decision, there's a 2-year bar before reapplying. Now, if you were denied, and it's something that you can easily correct. So you go, you read our denial letters. Our denial letters are your pathway forward. It walks you through all of the issues that we saw relative to your business, to your documentation, and how that doesn't fit criteria. If that happens and you read through that and there are things that are correctable on that, we also have a waiver process where you can submit for a 2-year waiver from denial that would allow you to reapply before that 2-year bar. Just as an aside.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
How long does it take to get for some reason the word just went right out of my head. You get denied, the process that you go to have it reevaluated.
The appeal?
Thank you. The appeal process. How long is that? Because we
So-
usually tell people not to bother, to just redo it and.
So the appeal process is, so they had a backlog as well, obviously. And as we got through ours, obviously, we just added on to theirs, but they have a good thing going now. They are working at the same rate that we are. So the appeal time is not as long as it used to be,
Okay.
relative to doing it. I encourage people, especially if we've denied you on recertification, to look into the reasons for the denial. And if you think that there is a reason to appeal, then obviously that's an option that's afforded to you and you should use it.
That's what leads the person from the status of rejection.
So my staff cannot reject your application for not meeting certification criteria. We can only reject you for not being in business for 1 year, for not providing us documentation that we've requested, or for submitting the wrong application. So we try to be as transparent as possible relative to like where things are going with the questions that we're asking, but I can't call you up and be like, hey, you've got some problems here and this might not be the day for you. But
I can.
she can, which is why we highly encourage you to use our partners.
Can and do.
Yep. All right, documentation. There's 4 slides of this. There is a 2-page sheet over on that table that details all of the documents that you need to submit a complete new application. So we can just, instead of me reading these to all of you wonderful people, we'll just click through them and you can go steal a sheet.
And make an appointment with Kate or Abby.
All right, so avoiding common mistakes. Incomplete documentation is the biggest hurdle to certification. We ask you for contracts and you provide us with an invoice that has nothing but a SKU number on it and a total. I have no idea what you do. I could Google the SKU number and I'll get 30,000 different Google results that'll tell me nothing. So when we ask our questions, we try to be as detailed as possible to let you know what it is that we're looking for. So that way we don't end up in a rejection scenario. So you go through the questions. I highly encourage you to kill a tree, print them off, check it off that you've submitted it, to go through it. Other things are, we have some standard forms that are part of the certification process, the attachment A, so you can all tell us your $16 million personal net worth. There's a spot in there where you have to put in your name, the business's name, the percentage of the business you own, your social security number, and then your personal net worth. Then it has to get signed and notarized. It's all in this tiny little paragraph that we've smushed together, and it's very easy to miss a box. So that's something that can delay the certification. If you can continue to miss a box, it could end in a rejection. So the same thing with the certification application affidavit. You have to sign it, it has to be notarized. So complete documentation is key. Other pitfalls is, in women in particular, I will say this, from all the WBE applications that I've seen, you're all way too humble. You're doing amazing things and none of you ever want to tell us. You're like, oh, you know, I have a great team. Everybody does a good job. I just sort of sit here. Well, that's not what I want to hear. This is the time for that 8-page resume for you to tell us how glorious you are, how the business would be dismantled if you weren't there. You know, people wouldn't even be able to keep the lights on. It's the time to tell us all about you and your contribution to the business and what you know about the work that you're doing. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do so. I'm often reminded of a certified WBE in Utica that I literally had to drive out to Utica to talk to her because somebody at the SBDC out there says, no, this is her business. She's doing an amazing job. And I said, on paper, it's a dud. Like, she's doing nothing. And so I went out there and I had a conversation with her, and she is amazing. The things she does for her business, the things she does in her community, but she's the most humble human being I've ever met in my entire life. And it was almost detrimental to her for certification if she didn't have somebody who was advocating for her. So coming to our program is not a time to be humble. Brag all day.
That origin story attachment, right?
Mhm.
Really important because it will say what nothing else can. And then the other thing that we've been doing too is if you are a subcontractor to somebody, get a letter from your primes, right? The people that you're contracting with, talking about your role in their engagement, because that will also solidify what you do. And if you haven't heard this term, does everybody know what a NAICS code is? Okay. That's how they determine where you fit. You have to actually read what the code is so that you're applying for the right ones, because sometimes there's semantics in those codes and you're asking for the wrong code. And they can only certify you in what you prove that you do. So if your invoice isn't going to tell the story, one of your partners that you're doing business for sometimes can tell that story. So you really have to lead the analyst. They can't see you. They don't know you. They're not here.
Yep. A story with the NAICS code. So if you're a marketing firm, every NAICS code has a definition. You can go to the census website to read all of the definitions of the codes. A lot of people don't, and I know this because I get a lot of marketing firms that apply for a branding code. The definition for a branding code is like branding an animal, branding a cow, branding a pig. And so obviously our marketing firms are not typically out there branding livestock. So read the definitions of the codes and it'll be a whole new world for you, but it'll help us in better identifying where you are and what industry you are. And the better we can get you coded, the better opportunities you can have for state contracting.
Pause for a sec. NAICS, NAICS, North American Industry Classification System, NAICS.
Yes.
And only go to the census site.
Correct.
A lot of sites, the census one is the only one that matters.
Correct. Any questions? Yes.
How does this certification help businesses that offer products that are not particularly asked for by the state? Like I have a tea shop. Somebody has a coffee shop. Somebody here, might sell flowers. So how does that help? How does this certification help us?
So I'll say for even us in particular, we do events all the time. We just did an event in Syracuse on Monday. I've been all over. I don't even know. And we looked for MWBEs to provide us with coffee and refreshments. And that's not just our agency because we practice what we preach. Across the board for events like that, we're always looking for things. So there's plenty of opportunity in that for certain.
Also, SUNY Cobleskill, right? They have an entire MWBE supplier program. Your school districts, the county, and your local governments all buy this kind of stuff. But then on top of it, so we're talking a lot about government opportunities. There's also an unbelievable opportunity within supplier diversity programs in the private sector. And just to give you some perspective, Walmart spends $6.9 billion a year with women-owned businesses. And I know that because it's important enough for them to track it. Right? There is an actual pathway to you for you to be a supplier to all of the major retailers to get your products on their shelves as a certified WBE or a certified MBE. There's pathways and a lot of things that you don't necessarily think of. And that's part of our role. We look at you and go, okay, where do you want to be? How do we get you there? What is the right way to get you there? Because sometimes it's not selling to Empire State Development or necessarily DOT. It's a little bit circular route kind of, but we'll get there. And that's what you have to do because it has to work for your business too, right?
Yeah, that was my question to become a bit more clear what are the benefits. Because in the very beginning, I thought it was just help to get loans for your work. But it seems like you have a directory.
Well, there's a directory, there's direct contracts, there's subcontracts, there's indirect contracts, and then what I call trickle down. And that trickle down is what you see in these smaller rural communities is the greatest opportunities. So that's the economic development program. So if a local daycare got an award to create a new educational program, right, from New York State, 30% of that money has to go to an MWBE. And then, so there could be an opportunity for a business that you wouldn't normally associate with state contracting through that. It could be through working with your local school district. You know, they many times get discretionary funding as well. So it's so semantic related for every single business because none of you are doing the same exact thing at the same exact time. So and all of you don't have the same goals, right? If you don't, we always like to say, you know, we can build the next tech giant if that's what you want, or we can build the lifestyle business that helps support your family in the community where you want to live with a high quality of life, or something in between. So we have to do it around what's best for the business owner because that's how you'll be successful, right? It's not a one size fits all. You mentioned the tea shop and a coffee bagel business. They're probably gonna have two completely different pathways, even though they appear the same, because they're gonna have different goals and they're gonna want to sell differently.
Oh, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but in this past year, there's $2.8 billion that went to minorities and businesses through the state procurement process. And I'm fairly certain it's like just shy of 50% went to women businesses. So, you know, it's true. You want to think about what is it that an agency would be interested in. But sometimes it's not always what you think. There's a lot that certainly construction, but especially with catering. And I've seen, I mean, to me, the perfect example is there's one business that created these person-sized chocolates and was able to get a contract, you know, for some random, opportunity there. So I'm just saying, like, you know, you want to be thoughtful, I'm sure, about it, but you know, you also probably just want to look at some of the RFPs because there may be something that would give it the best.
New York State Contract Reporter. It's a website that you can make an account on, you can subscribe to, and you can indicate what type of contract opportunities you're interested in receiving information on. And then they can send you daily emails about all of the opportunities that are available to you. And they have the rep for them was one of our analysts. So he can even talk to you about certification if he wants to, because he's very sharp. But the New York State Contract Reporter.
You can also archive. They have a great archive. So I always tell people, if you're new to this, when you do the alerts to see the new opportunities, then you go back into the archive to see the old opportunities, because the old opportunities have contact names from the agency of who submitted that bid. And then you call them to figure out how to get on their internal bid list, right? For maybe some smaller opportunities, but I say sky's the limit, right? There's an opportunity for everybody. You just have to find the right one.
And once you're done with us in certification, we have a whole business development unit, and they put on events and webinars and can link you with opportunities. I think Jason talked about the incubator program. There's a lot of opportunities once you get in the door with us relative to certification that can then help you to get that opportunity. You know, certification is very much the first step, and then all the work comes after that. And it's your work, not the contracts. Your work comes after that and finding what's going to work for you and for your business.
Not only that, in like the private sector, I know that people have come to my business simply because of a women-owned business, you know, so if you have that certification sitting there, it's it's an advertising piece to say that you're a women-owned business and you're certified and, then people wanna visit you.
As a small business owner, I seek out first women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, LGBTQ plus businesses. Those are all of the things that I seek out first as businesses that I do business. It's good.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
That list of businesses in our county.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, we have it. We'll share it, we'll send it out. And we did record today's session, so we'll send a link out as well. So if you want to listen to it, if you heard something you wanted to listen to again, you'll have access to that and to share with other people, any other folks that you think may be interested. So before we close, are there any other comments, something you wish you said, haven't said, want to reiterate?
I have a favor. So before we go up to lunch, if everybody could go outside and you get a group picture in front of the building.
That's a great idea.
Because, I mean, this is a big crowd for this community and I think you should celebrate it. I'd like to celebrate it.
We could do it. Yeah. You want to wander outside or do you want to just
It's
push
up to
the
the
chairs aside and stand here and do it?
Wherever you guys want to do it.
What do you guys want to do?
Great day outside.
Outside, get some fresh air. All right, so let's walk out the front door. Where's Rosalind?